Your Excellencies, Nicholas, Olga, dear friends, Nick Bornozis was also one of my tutors in university, and that's why my lack of financial engineering has resulted, as you see. Well, it is really with great joy and a sense of fulfillment that I stand here to celebrate a real visionary for his contributions towards education and shipping, Professor Costas Grammenos. What he started as a small-scale part-time shipping course more than 35 years ago has become the premier global maritime academic curriculum. And I didn't know it all started over steaks in Kifisia, so that's a new history. His timing in the early 80s was also real contrarian. The market then, like now, was in the middle of a very long recession. What's new in shipping? I think nothing has changed over the last 35 years. The industry was out of the radar screen. There was gloom and doom all over the place. Shipping was a sore subject, but the professor, through his strong Hellenic tradition, knew that the sea gets seasick, but it always survives. He proved the point that although shipping is in the blood, and certainly in the Greek blood, you need the right veins to make it work. The Professor Grammenos course provided those academic arteries for the very first time in shipping's long history. His course gave the opportunity to young men and women to live and study in a very international environment, full of on-hand experience and expertise, full of shipping brokers, insurance brokers, and bankers also, and to live in one of the most exciting cities, which was London, and that offered multiple career opportunities in high-profile businesses around the globe, building a very tightly knit network known as the Harvard of shipping. Although I come from Columbia University, I know, Nick, you will appreciate the Harvard of shipping quotation, being a Harvard graduate. The course taught innovative ideas about trade and banking, opened horizons to equity finance and globalization, and even accepted dissertations on shipping in the public markets back in the 80s. For better or worse, I have been a guinea pig in this experience. In the mid-80s, after graduating from the United States, I was between starting a high-tech company out of my papoose garage in Kardamila or go to cash. So now, $1 billion less later, I still feel very proud for the decisions I made. On my many and long journeys as a businessman and with my INTERTANKO hat on, I meet Professor Grammenos' former students in top positions all over the world. Amongst them, there's a strong feeling of solidarity and networking. How is the prof? They ask fondly. On a recent trip to the Far East, I was in the middle of a heated exchange during negotiations. The broker, in fear of his commission, interfered and mentioned Cash Business School common alumnus. And needless to say, many sakes and kampais later, a very cordial deal was signed. If it goes wrong, I will blame the professor. The same is true in Singapore, in Korea, in India, in Scandinavia, in the UK, in the US, and all over the maritime clusters. But it's not only the level of education and networking possibilities that the professor oversees. It is amazing his ability to remember every single one of more than 2,000 students that he has taught. I often call him to ask about some of my business associates or a new relationship, and he just shoots back. Oh yes, Natasha, nice girl, class of 08, average student, went to Lukoil analysis with Gazprom Singapore. Great personality. Or, oh yes, John, class of 04, graduated with 70. Good student, very smart, tough character, be careful, Nikos, etc., etc. So the professor not only cares about the 1 or 2 years you spend on his course, but he considers every one of his graduates to be like family. He helps and cares for their well-being, and without you knowing it, he follows your developments. He follows them to such an extent that I thought he was using a CAS graduate location application on his iPhone to track us down. But knowing the professor's technological abilities, I am sure he doesn't. It really all comes naturally. His love for education, his work, and people create the chemistry that keeps us together. With this, I want to congratulate Capital Link for their choice and say a big thank you to the professor on behalf of all shipping people for his contribution to our industry and its profile. And I also warn him not to make any retirement plans until my children graduate. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, and now Anthony Papadimitriou, the chairman of the Onassis Foundation. Thank you, Anthony.
Professor Grammenos, dear friends, please excuse my voice, I have a slight cold. Thank you, Nikos, for making it very easy for me, and it's going to be, and making also easier for me to have a short speech, because you very eloquently described Professor Grammenos and all his achievements in CAS Business School. However, when Nikos Bornozis mentioned the university, almost half the attendees raised their hands. But I would like to say something else, something different. First of all, the more well-known is a person, the shorter should be the introduction. So I will be very short on that. So, as I was saying, when you raised when talking about the university and Professor Grammenos, basically you think CAS. However, Professor Grammenos has another university because he is also the president of the board of essentially the rector, the Prytanis, of the International University of Salonika, the Ethnes Panepistimiou Thessalonikis, which I always wondered why he would do that. Why did he do that? And I think the answer is very simple. He does it only because he is a Greek. And he thinks that having established the Shipping, Trade and Finance Center, the Costas Grammenos Shipping, Trade and Finance Center in London, he owed it to his mother country and to his compatriots to do something for Greece. So at the request of the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Costas Karamanlis, he took upon himself the establishment of the International University in Salonika, which is the only English-speaking university which does postgraduate degrees, and it is a very modern university. It has received consistently over the last years the top ratings from external evaluators, not just the evaluators who evaluate Greek universities, but also international evaluators. So this is one of the top universities. And guess what? It doesn't do shipping. It does do archaeology, it does do history, the classics, it does law, it does economics, but doesn't do shipping. However, it is one of the most successful universities with an international student profile, and one of the best universities in this area, and in Salonika, Μεγάλη φτωχομάνα, as Professor Grammenos used to say. So he always complains, to me at least, that what I'm doing here, what's happening here. But I said to him, well, you owe it to your country. You cannot remain in history as the founder of the Costas Grammenos Center of Shipping, Trade and Finance in London. Something has to be done in Greece. So that's one aspect of Costas which I wanted to bring to your attention, because not all of you may be aware of that. The other thing is that Costas, and I know him very well, he's been with us with the Onassis Foundation, a member of our board for something like 20 plus years, I can't even remember. And he has always been a mentor to me. He is, I didn't have the chance of being a student formally, of Costas, but I've learned a lot from him. And in fact, since I was elected the president of the Onassis Foundation, very, very often I will call Costas and tell him, you know what, I have this idea, we should buy the ship or sell the ship or do this or do that. Costas will be there and he will be listening without speaking most of the time, but then he will put one question, and that question will be directly stokarfi. He will be directly on the spot and raise the one question which needs to be answered. So thank you, Costas, for that. I'm sure you do that to a lot of the other people around here who will go to you and ask you questions about business. And in fact, your answers and your whole attitude to business shows that you can be not just an academic, but also a businessman in essence, because your participation in the Onassis Foundation is really there, and I'm sure with a lot of other people. And there is another aspect to Costas, and that is with which I will finish, because I think it rounds up the character of our friend, Professor Costas Grammenos, and that is that Costas is really a man of culture. Costas is a man who has amazed me with the depth of his culture and his knowledge. He's in music, in theater, in arts. He was watching the first, he keeps telling me, the first performance of The Birds by Carlos Kuhn back in the early 60s, or was it the late 50s? I don't remember. So he was there, and he's been following. He's been a real theatrophile, a real, music is one of the things he loves, literature, and therefore Costas is uniting in one person, in one personality, academia, knowledge, business, and culture. And in my sense, and I think we should all remember him, and we should all love him for what he is, a true homo universalis, a universal person, a person who can unite not one trait of character, but all of them. So Costas, I think you are you have served the Greek community and Greece and shipping very well. You have served us, the Onassis Foundation. You have served all your students very well. So this award, which is going to be given to you, is very well deserved. And thank you very much on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Ευχαριστώ. Dear friends, dear graduates, or dear students, Dr. Tsakos, Dr. Papadimitriou, Mr. Bornozis, ladies and gentlemen, I'm hugely honored in receiving the prestigious Capital Link Greek Shipping Award. I thank Capital Link. I thank Nicholas Bornozis. Both of us have walked a very long way to reach this point. The only difference is that he's a lot younger. I do also thank Dr. Nicholas Tsakos and Dr. Anthony Papadimitriou for their exceedingly warm and generous introductions. Thank you so very much. Yes, I am professor, but I admit I have learned a lot from them during our very long friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, it all started 35 years ago when I joined the then City University Business School, now Cass Business School, as a full-time visiting professor at the beginning, and then full-time professor, and created the Center for Shipping, Trade and Finance. Research, teaching, and creation of a platform for international dialogue. That was my mandate. And of course, the MSc in Shipping, Trade and Finance, and later the MSc in Energy, Trade and Finance. A driving force in recruiting me in 1982 was the then Dean of City University Business School, Professor Brian Griffiths. From 1985, 1991, head of Mrs. Thatcher Policy Unit, and now Lord Griffiths and Vice Chairman of Goldman Sachs. I have never forgotten my National Bank of Greece years from 1962, when I finished my high school and I went to the university, from 1962 to 1975. And actually, in 1971, I met Captain Panagiotis Tsakos at the shipping branch. It was his very beginning. Where, National Bank of Greece, I learned to read and I understand the real world of business. And I started, and that is very important in my career, I started my research in bank shipping finance, based on well above 600 loans, not only from National Bank of Greece, from other financial institutions as well. And because we organized or we participated in syndicating loans. 600 plus huge confidential files, which I will restructure at the University of North Wales in Bangor in 1975. There, in Bangor, my mind expanded. My way of thinking became broader and very analytical. I owe a lot to Bangor. The University of Wales Press publishes in early 1979 my book, Bank Finance for Ship Purchase, which will become the book of the year and eventually the flagship of this academic publisher. I should mention that Andreas Tsavliris, equally kind and close friend then and now, has offered several comments on the first 3 chapters of my book. It is time to renew my thanks to him. From the very early period at City University Business School, I believed strongly that our academic success will go in hand with the success of both the business school and the City University. You know, sometimes you try for a different path. Wrong. I clearly follow the holistic approach all these 35 years at City University. That's why you will see a few minutes later, I believe, the 50th anniversary video of Cass Business School instead of seeing my own personal photographs from period of 50 years plus. I strongly believe, ladies and gentlemen, in the need of combined efforts and teamwork. When my students ask me for the recipe of success, I invariably reply that this recipe has 3 levels. The first one is hard work. The second one is hard work. And the third one is hard work. I have been working hard for very, very many years in my life. Being in a thanking mood, I take the opportunity to very warmly thank my wife, Anna, for her strong support. All these all these 45 years we are married, demanding, and very happy years. My wife is an archaeologist. Our son is a historian. And as I said 17 years ago, on a similar occasion at the Guildhall in London, she finds me more interesting as I'm getting older. 12 days ago, I had a cataract eye surgery. My wife kept reminding me, the eye drops. Don't forget the eye drops. Should you travel by airplane? Ask the doctor. Do not carry a heavy suitcase. It's very dangerous. It is obvious, ladies and gentlemen, her view was that I had reached the status of an archaeological object. Going back to the Center for Shipping, Trade and Finance, I'm aware that we created a new way of thinking in shipping in international business. Up until that time, there was an excellent course in maritime studies at Cardiff. It had nothing to do, though, with finance, trade, commodities, energy, and similar subjects. We added them. We created shipping finance as a totally new academic area. Commodities also. We added a totally new MSc course internationally, the Energy, Trade and Finance, in 2003. We teach students, ladies and gentlemen, knowledge, new techniques, their application in business. We give them tools for analysis, which will become tools for their success. We stay away, strictly away, from politics, from political parties. Our job is to academically strengthen our students, to show them how they can apply theory into practice, to show them ways of thinking, of taking action, of taking decisions, to make them to think for the path of professional success in the tough, small, and great world of international business networks. In this process, you give and take. In this process, you discover, they discover, many of them, creation as the ultimate purpose in life. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is all about creation that makes life fascinating and worthwhile. I'm grateful that I was given the opportunity to share efforts with our center colleagues, and it happens that all of them, my colleagues at the Center for Shipping, Trade and Finance, Cass Business School, are students of mine. All right, they are professors now, most of them, but they continue to be students for me. Other also academic at Cass and other universities, and 4,700 students from graduates from 160 countries. Grateful indeed. Thank you very much.
από πίσω. Καθίστε, θα έρθουμε εμείς από εκεί.